Welcome back. We are working on Module 9, where we're going to talk about measures of spread around the median specifically. The first thing that we're going to address is how you calculate the range. We've used the word range in the past couple of modules, and when we were talking about the range, we were talking about the minimum value to the maximum value. And the range is actually a single number. It's not from this to that. It's actually the difference between the maximum and the minimum. So to find the range, you take the highest value minus the lowest value, and you get that number, and that number is the range. The next question we have here in our notes is, does the range do a good job of describing a distribution's variability? Well, remember in our previous module, we talked about variability being how spread out your data is. Why or why not? So we have this image down here where we're talking about the exam scores of two different classes. Looking at this picture that we have here, where we have the exam scores for class A and class B, we see that the distributions are not the same. But if you notice, they do have the same range. The minimum value for both is here, and the maximum value for both is here. So if you subtracted 95 minus 40, you would get that the range for both of these is 55. But one is more spread out than the other. If you look at class A, you see that the groupings in the center are closer together, whereas class B has more data points that are spread out. So I would say the range doesn't really do a good job of describing the variability here, because we have the same numbers, but the distributions have very different variability. The next question says, what is a quartile? What does a quartile sound like to you? To me, it sounds like a quarter. And a quartile is essentially a quarter of your data set. So what a quartile is it is something that divides up the data set into 4 groups with an equal number of data points. So let's say I have a data set with 12 numbers. Then a quartile, each quartile is going to have 3 data points, 3, 3, 3, and 3, to have each data set has an equal number of data points. To calculate the quartiles, essentially we have the quartile is the break in between each of the groups. So let's say I like to envision a dollar bill. And if I fold the dollar bill in half, then I fold it again, I folded it into 4 sections. And the middle section is the median, and the upper and the lower sections are divided by the first and third quartile. Let me give you a visual of that. Let's say I have this image here, and I cut it in half, and then I cut it in half again. The first quartile here separates the lowest 25% and the upper 75%. The second quartile is actually the median. It separates the data into 50% of the data below and 50% of the data above. And then the third quartile separates lower 75, upper 25. And then the fourth quartile has all the data below it. So we've got Q1, Q2, and Q3 are the 3 that we mainly use. We don't really ever talk about Q4. It happens to be the same thing as the maximum. So we calculate the quartiles by taking the median first, and then finding the median of the lower half and the median of the upper half. The median of the lower half is Q1, and the median of the upper half is Q3. So in each of these sections, there is 25% of the data. So each of those partitions has 25%, 25% from the minimum to Q1, 25% from Q1 to Q2, 25% from Q2 to Q3, and 25% from Q3 to Q4. And then you can add those up. So there's 50% from Q1 to Q3, 50% from Q2 to Q4, 50% from the minimum to Q2, or 75%, however you want to slice it. So you can calculate, you just have to pay attention to the wording of the question. The question says 25% of the data fall above what number? That's not Q1, that's Q3. So you have to pay attention to the wording. So what percentage of data is contained in each quartile? That's 25%. What percent of the data falls above Q1? So from Q1, above it, I have three groups of 25, so that's 75% that falls above. And then it says what percent falls below, the other 25 is below. So 75% above, 25% below for Q1. For Q2, 50-50. For Q3, it's the opposite of Q1. There is 25% above and 75% below. And then 50% of the data falls between which two quartiles? Well, if you look at your picture, you can get 50% between the minimum and Q2, between Q1 and Q3, or between Q2 and Q4. Most of the time when people say 50% fall within which, they're talking about the middle 50%. So if it says the middle 50%, you need Q1 and Q3. So pay attention again to the wording. Okay. Question 10 says, how do you complete a learn by doing like the one on page 52? So I'm going to stop here and head on over to the next video so I can show you how to do some of these learn by doing that require you to download data and can be a little tricky at first.